Kasukan Kasukit Ha! Hello everyone. We're back. And the Dwarfs have joined us in Immortal Empires. And I gotta say, I love what I'm seeing. Dwarf start positions looking pretty good. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in. We'll of course save the best for last, but let's go ahead and work our way down the list of the characters who have not changed. So first and foremost, we've got the Slayer King, Ungrim Iron Fist, up in Slayer Keep Karak, looking great, though he of course has some new enemies, most notably being Skarsnik. Obviously there are other enemies further and farther afield. He might actually have to worry about Grimgor making his way across the Darklands, but Skarsnik is kind of the only really close new opponent, which is going to be a similar issue for Thorgrim. But yeah, actually both Ungrim and Thorgrim are now sandwiched between greenskin factions, which is really interesting, because with Ungrim he's sandwiched between Azhag and Skarsnik. Meanwhile, Thorgrim is sandwiched between Skarsnik and Wurzag, which is pretty interesting. But looking at this, Ungrim obviously has a really fun start position. I will say I am very excited about Kislev being in the match now, because that's a really strong potential ally for Ungrim. I imagine that if you're just playing the campaign fairly normally, that the Kislevites, especially Katerin, will almost assuredly be a very reliable group of people to team up with, who you're going to be fighting against, you know, Norska and the monsters of Hell Pit and the greenskins alongside. So that's really cool. Ungrim could always use more allies, especially because once they add the vampire counts in here, he's, you know, he's got a lot of enemies around him. So you're definitely going to want to shore up your defenses at Karak, because you're going to be facing a lot of major enemies. Meanwhile, if we head just a little further south, we of course have Thorgrim Grudgebearer, our glorious High King in Karaz Ankor, and not too much has changed about his campaign. The Mount Gumbad race is actually a little bit more interesting. So it used to be with Thorgrim that you would kind of go to Mount Gumbad as fast as you could, because you wanted to get a hold of the Brightstone mine and all of that additional gold. But it would always be kind of tricky, because you'd have to deal with Grimgor being down in Blackcrag, who would usually start harassing and attacking you, usually with Wurzag in tow, which was just frustrating and annoying. But now there is no one notable in Blackcrag. I hope to see a Greenskin Legendary Lord take over Blackcrag, and I would love for it to be the actual Squatter King himself, Gorfang Rakut. But for now, there's not like a super important enemy there. So Thorgrim, I believe, is going to have a little bit more breathing room as far as his southern position is concerned. And now the race to Mount Gumbad is going to be more important than ever, because not only are you going to be reclaiming those important resources, but you also will be taking out the Warlord of the Eight Peaks, who of course has many sins addressed against him in the Great Book of Grudges, and he needs to be taken out, because the longer you let Skarsnik fester there, the worse it's going to get. But I do like that there's kind of there's like a notable opponent who is going to be a problematic rival for Thorgrim, preventing him from getting easy access to Ungrim, and also, you know, defending the Brightstone mines. That, I don't know, I just like the thematicness of that. I really like Skarsnik's new start position, both as an antagonist and playable character. But overall, I think Thorgrim's position hasn't changed terribly much. He does also have Tretch nearby as like a genuine Skaven enemy right at the beginning of his campaign, so that's kind of nice. And the Skaven are going to be shored up in a pretty impressive capital, thanks to Crookback Mountain, which is got, you know, some pretty nice unique buildings for the Skaven, and is presumably going to be fairly well defended by them. Moving on to Belegar Ironhammer, he's actually moved to Zil, which, if I recall correctly, I think is actually a little further away than his original start position. I can't quite remember if Zil is this region that is between Talea and the Western Border Princes, or if it's the halfway point in the Black Mountains province. Or no, that's not the Black Mountains. Whatever this mountain range is called. I forget what this province is called. But it's gonna be interesting to see exactly how he's... Oh wait, no, it's the Vaults. That's what it is. It's the Vaults province. I was looking at this weird. So yeah, it looks like he's actually in the position that's halfway between Talea and the Western Border Princes now. And he's no longer, because he used to start in Karak but now it looks like he starts down in Zil, and he needs to fight his way up to Karak. I'm wondering if he'll control both of those settlements, or if that, I think it's the Skull Smashers Greenskin tribe that's up here, if he's going to have to take it from them, because that actually will be a more challenging and more interesting start. But yeah, man, Belegar's got his work cut out for him. Getting to 8 peaks through all of this garbage is actually going to be a fair bit more difficult than it used to be. You have to deal with Scrag and his ogres, which, granted, Scrag and the ogres are, relatively neutral. However, Belegar has had some pretty bitter experience trying to rely on ogres as an ally. So I don't know if trusting Scrag is the best idea. Especially because they do like to leave those raiding camps around, even if you're allies with them, especially if you're allies with them. So I don't know, it may be worth trying to get rid of Scrag with Belegar, but that's probably not going to be a super easy thing to do. Ogres are a pretty nasty opponent for dwarfs, though, obviously you can put your shooting to really good use against them. And those ancestor spirits will do some good work. But yeah, Belegar is definitely gonna have his work cut out for him, because you're gonna have to defeat Scrag and then either make your way across the Border Princes to head down towards the 8 peaks, or fight your way through Wurzag and God knows what else on your way to the 8 peaks, because you're now the furthest away. Belegar definitely has the longest journey to the 8 peaks, and by far the most difficult. Queek is very, very close to the 8 peaks, and he starts with that big undercity down beneath it. Skarsnik is fairly close to the 8 peaks, and Skarsnik doesn't even have to take it. He just has to beat the, which, granted, normally this results in you having to actually take it by force, but, he just has to beat the war boss of the 8 peak, or the Crooked Moon Rebels, or the 8 peak Rebels, whatever they're called, tribe. He just has to beat their war boss, and he can immediately confederate them. Belegar, you have to take it through just hard effort and ass kicking. Meanwhile, you're gonna have demons and elves and all sorts of other nonsense running around causing problems. So Belegar, we tip our hat to you, but you certainly do not have an easy time ahead of you. Which, would it really be a Belegar campaign if it wasn't, agonizingly difficult? Meanwhile, in the south, we have in Karak Thorek Ironbrow. So personally, I'm pleased to see Thorek has remained where he used to be. I'm really, really liking the look of the Southlands Thunderdome. It has so many different races participating in kind of this giant free-for-all, which just looks super fun and exciting. And having a dwarf down there is just a nice little cherry on top. I'm curious if there's anybody else that's going to squeeze in there before the end. But yeah, Karak Zorn I think is going to be fantastic. I'm curious to see, with the way that the Southlands has expanded, we now have significantly more, Southlands to work with. So I'm curious if the mountains that have been drawn through it, the Southern's World's Edge Mountains, is any different looking, because the way this map looks, I'm just curious where you can enter the mountains from, and where the passes are. It doesn't really seem possible to tell based on this map. So I will be very curious to see just how difficult it is to defend Carrickzorn and the Southern World's Edge as a province, but we'll have to wait and see. But I think that's a really good start position for Thorek. It allows him to have, much more interest, very, very different enemies than a typical dwarf campaign, because you're fighting basically everyone, but you got a lot of like lizardmen and tomb kings and demons. And hey, if there is anyone who is well qualified to put Skarbrand in the dirt, it is Thorek Ironbrow. Show him that he may be resistant to magic, but rune magic is something different, something special. But look, that's going to be a super fun campaign. I'm really, really looking forward to it. And I do like that we have a really nice kind of gradient of the dwarfs across the World's Edge Mountains, where you've got Ungrim in the north, Thorgrim kind of in the center, and then Thorek at the very southern tip. And you kind of work towards each other if you wanted to unify the Karaz Ankor. And then, of course, last but definitely not least, is the ancestral throng of Grombrindal, who look like they are at the very, very bottom tip of the Iron Mountains. Well, I can't tell. That might not be the Iron Mountains. It might actually be the, what is this, the Copper Coast? No, the Copper Desert's down here. I forget which coast this is, but this coastline up here, that could, it looks like he might actually be starting on the coastline as opposed to in the actual Iron Mountains themselves, but he could be in that last little region that dips down. I do know he is in, what is he in? Gosh, I had it memorized and then my brain, Dracula Spire. Yeah, so the Dracula Spire, which I believe that is actually on the coast. So it's going to be very, very interesting to see exactly how his start gets out. I think myself and many people were expecting him to be in the Iron Mountains proper, but it looks like he actually is starting just adjacent to them and then will work his way up into them. But I believe that Nagaroth is right here at the Ironfoot. What is this? The Ironfoot Hills. So yes, the Ironfoot Hills. So here's where Nagaroth is. So you can see you're very, very close to Malekith. I will say that is going to be such a fun throwdown between the two of them. And it looks like it can happen very, very quickly if you want it to. I do hope that they make Malekith's start position. I really hope he has a really strong garrison so that if you're playing Grombrindal, it's not too easy, to just run over there and slap him across the face until he no longer, until he just ceases to exist. But I'm so excited for that campaign. I am so excited for that campaign because it's just exotic, man. There's gonna be so many dark elves. You're gonna be fighting against the warriors of chaos almost immediately, or the Norskins at least. A lot of people always wanted Grombrindal to be in with the Norskin dwarves so that, you could have a really chaos-centric campaign. But I really think this is almost probably going to give you even more chaos because I imagine there's probably more warriors out here once they add in all the warrior factions and stuff. Because this is the full-on chaos way. So you're probably going to have like a couple of tribes, and then it's probably just going to be all the big bads. And Grombrindal is going to be right on the front lines, ready to, start cutting people down left and right. But I'm very excited for that start position. One co-op campaign we've already talked about in prior videos is that I think very, very much that an Elithanar Grombrindal duo campaign is going to be exceptionally fun. But at the same, it's kind of funny at the same time. Grombrindal is very, very good against elves. Like most, I don't know if they'll change his faction effects, but Grombrindal in Mortal Empires in his final state had a lot of bonuses against just all elves. Like he didn't really, obviously the Dark Elves are who he's a little more salty with, but the War of Vengeance still happened, and Grombrindal very sourly remembers that. And as far as he's concerned, the High Elves are probably almost just as bad as the Dark Elves. So at the same time, while a vengeance focused campaign with those two characters would be a lot of fun, if you're just playing Grombrindal, slapping a Lithanar around and being like, get out of here, you little whippersnapper, will also, I think, be a really good time. But I'm really excited for this. I'm so excited for Grombrindal. He looks like so much fun. It looks like so much fun. That's something that we've been wanting for so long, and it was we got so blue-balled by the end times when it came to the Malekith Grombrindal thing. It was such a pathetic, sad little footnote, because like I don't know, it just felt like the authors didn't really know what to do with it. And with Grombrindal, he's actually very recently returned to Age of Sigmar. He doesn't have a playable character yet, but supposedly in 3rd edition we should be getting Grombrindal as a playable character, with some sort of new dwarf faction or something, or sorry, Dwarden. But we're still kind of waiting on that. But I'm so glad the Ancestral Throng is active. And dude, that banner is so glorious. Like, look at that mustache. That is probably the most superior dwarf mustache I've ever seen. And what a perfect what a perfect banner to represent the white dwarf. But yeah, I don't have too much more to add. A lot of these final start positions have very few changes, despite the fact they're very, very exciting changes. We only have a few left. I think we're down now to Vampire Counts, Dark Elves, and Warriors of Chaos. And I think that's it. There might be one more that I'm forgetting. But I am very, very, very excited to see as the map continues to fill out. Let me know what y'all think of the map down below. Are you most excited? I imagine most people that are Dwarf fans are excited for Grombrindal. I think a lot of Dwarf players have been kind of waiting for an anti-elf campaign, and it's finally arrived, and what a perfect person to handle that particular feud. But maybe you're looking at some of these other characters and you're like, oh man, I can't wait to do the Thunderdome with Thorek, or I can't wait to explore the Darklands and start fighting my way into the Mountains of Morn with Ungrim and do some real monster slaying. Or maybe you're looking forward to uniting the Karaz Ankor with Thorgrim, or doing the new Apex race with Belegar. Let me know down below, which dwarf campaign are you the most excited for? Or if you're someone that does not like to play the dwarves, but you like to crush the Dawi, are there any changes that have you excited as someone who likes to punt stunties? If so, let me know. But thank you all so much for watching. I will see y'all at the latest tomorrow for some more goodies. In case you missed it, there was actually kind of a surprise video yesterday because Games Workshop released an actual Snake Man. Granted, it was for Blood Bowl, but Blood Bowl is based on fantasy, and they did give us a Lustrian Snake Man, which is wild, and it's a gorgeous mini. So I did a reaction video to that I'll link to down below if you'd like to go check that out. But in any event, thank you again for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.